How many months or years have you wasted on a man thinking he's the one, just to find out that this man never actually had intentions of doing the hard work that it takes to build a healthy relationship with you? How much time, energy, resources have you poured into a man just to get practically nothing in return? For me, the answer is too damn many. So that's why I developed this 5-step method to uncovering his red flags before getting attached, so that you can stop wasting time and getting your heart broken on men that were never shit to begin with. These questions have 3 goals. 1 is to find out if he has any emotional intelligence. The second is to find out if he has discipline and drive, because men without these qualities cheat. The third is to find out if you're just generally compatible in life and in finances. These 3 goals coincide with the 3 main drivers of breakups and divorce: poor conflict resolution, aka lack of emotional awareness and stability, cheating, and financial disagreements. Now, while the questions I'm about to share with you are important, what's even more important is actually your response to his answer. Why? You want to get him into a position where he just wants to share the information with you. How do you do that? You act like you want to know more and more and more and more about him by just asking further and further open-ended questions. So, for example, like, you ask him, do you have any siblings? And he's like, yeah, I have a brother and a sister. Okay, what are they like? What do you like about them? What do you dislike about your siblings? What pisses you off about your siblings? Just keep diving in further and further. Now, that may sound obvious at first, but the psychology behind this is you want him thinking that you are like fascinated by everything he says, because the more you can convince him that you are fascinated and infatuated with what he has to say, no matter if you agree or disagree with what he's saying. So say he says something that you actually think is like horrible and you're like, well, what the fuck, that is disgusting. Don't respond like that. Not on the first date, okay? We want him to reveal everything. So in order to do that, we need to make him believe that if he reveals everything, he will get a reward. He will get us to be even more attracted to him. So if you respond with like disgust to something he says, he's gonna close off, okay? So you don't want to do that right away. Now, obviously, what he's saying might mean that you're not compatible and then you won't go on a second date with him. But if you're still debating it, then you want him to say more and more and more. And so in order to get him to say more, you need to pretend like the more he says, the more attracted you're getting to him. Does that make sense, what I'm saying so far? So the question is less important than how you respond to his answer. So just be like, oh my God, like, that's so interesting. Can you tell me more about this? Can you explain how that made you feel? Can you explain your perspective of the situation? Especially if you guys start talking about his past relationship. Now, I did not include this on the list of 5 questions you want to ask. I did not include asking about previous relationships because it depends on the vibe. That might not be a comfortable question for you to ask on day fucking 1. So maybe you want to put that off for the 2nd or 3rd or 4th date. Eventually you want to talk about it, of course, because his past relationship experiences are a good indicator of what you want to do and not do in this new relationship that you're building with him. So that's a good question to ask eventually. You can ask it on the first date if it is flowing with the conversation, but don't just like, so, did you cheat? Like, of course, if you ask him if he's a cheater, he's gonna say no. Like, why would he reveal all of his worst qualities to you on the first date if you're not doing the work and convincing him that you like when he shares the naughty things about him? You know what I mean? With that being said, let's just get into question number 1. This is a fun one. I like to ask him, what do you like to spend your money on? In my past relationship, I asked this on the first date and he literally said booze. Now, I should not have continued to date him, but I did, and guess what? It didn't work out. Shocker. But this is just a good question to ask because, number 1, financial disagreements are a major cause of breakups. My own parents got divorced because of financial disagreements, so I would know. So if your man is spending all of his like free money on booze and you don't even like to drink, you don't even drink, you don't even go out, how are you two compatible? These are things I wish I knew, but now I know, so learn from my mistakes. Obviously, you're not gonna make a fucking financial plan together on the first date, but like, it's just a good tell of what he values. Question number 2, tell me about your closest friends. Then try to get him to tell the good and the bad if you can. The reason I like this question so much is because men often think like, oh, those are just my friends. They have their own lives that have nothing to do with me. Like, you're not gonna judge me based off of how my friends act. That's where they're wrong, because the 5 people you keep closest to you determine what your own personality is. So if all of his friends are cheaters, babe, run. If all of his friends, like, all they like to do together is drink, play video games, whatever the fuck else dirty shit men like to do, run for the hills, babe, okay? Find out the bad, negative things about his friends, and as he says it, keep in mind, we're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Like, tell me more. What else did Josh do? Oh my God, like, how does Josh treat his girlfriend? Tell me everything. Question number 3, what's a goal you want to achieve this year? If the man has no goals, how can he build a relationship with you? Because having a relationship even is a goal in itself. If he doesn't know how to create goals, you're never going to be able to build something with him. And then on top of that, if he has no goals, he probably has like no discipline whatsoever. And men who have no discipline, when a sexy little woman comes in and is like, hey baby, I want you, he's not going to have the willpower and the drive to be like, I want a girlfriend who trusts me. That is my goal, and so therefore I'm going to say no to this woman who's trying to fuck me, who's really hot. If he has no discipline, he will cheat on you, okay? Trust me. But also just in general, like, why would you want a lazy man? Especially if you're not lazy. That's just not going to help you. How is he going to provide for you? And men have this innate desire to provide, and so if he doesn't feel like he can provide anything for you, it's just not going to be a stable relationship. Question number 4, when you're having a bad day, what do you do and who do you listen to? Because personally, when I'm having a bad day, there's certain like podcasts that I listen to that relieve my anxiety, or music I listen to, or, you know, there's certain things I call my mom. There's things that you do to make yourself feel better. We want to know what he does, because again, if he says, oh, I go get drunk, that means he has no emotional awareness. He has no emotional stability to self-reflect and think, why am I feeling this way? And how can I make myself feel better? What actions can I take to move myself in the right direction? He just wants to avoid emotions at all costs. And someone who avoids his own emotions is going to avoid yours. He's going to neglect your emotions if he neglects his own. So if his coping mechanisms are unhealthy and they don't consist of something like, oh, I go on a run, or I go to the gym, or I talk to my mom or my dad or my friend, or I meditate, or something, you know, healthy, or journal or something. If he says like, I work harder, that is a subtle red flag, because that's still distracting and avoiding emotions. You know, you gotta kind of use your best discernment, and you have to kind of know what is a healthy coping mechanism and what is just a distraction from the actual problem. And another thing is, he might say something like, oh, I listen to this certain podcast or like YouTuber or something, or I like play rap music or something like that, and you should go listen to the podcast or whatever yourself. And if it's like aggressive and harsh and red-pilled, then probably want to avoid that too. And the 5th and final question is, what does a perfect day look like for you? Again, if it has anything to do with like getting drunk with the boys, or like I love to game and get drunk with the boys, like that would be a perfect Saturday. Like, and that's not your perfect Saturday, babe, it's not gonna work. So you gotta have something that kind of aligns. You know, it doesn't have to be exactly aligned, but if his perfect day has no room for you and has no overlap with what your perfect day looks like, you two are probably just simply not compatible. If you have no activities that you would like to share together, or no shared vision or shared goal in life, it's probably just not your man. So those are my 5 questions. Obviously, you want them to go with the flow. You don't want to ask him in an interviewee type of way. You want to add in other shit, and hopefully like you can just get him to spill all this without having to ask in like a what's your favorite color like type of way. But overall, the more you can get him to open up by making him feel like you're obsessed, infatuated with the words he's saying out of his mouth, the better, because you don't want to be in a position where you're sharing everything and then he's just using what you say to create a playbook of how he plans to manipulate you. Okay? You want to be in the position of power. You want to have all the knowledge about him and what he wants and what he values, so that you have the upper hand and he doesn't just pretend to be your dream man. You do not want to be saying, oh, I love when men do this for me. I love when men do that for me. My dream man would buy me flowers and take me to dinner and say this and say that and act in this way. Once you start sharing with him that that's what you want, he's just gonna do exactly that, even if that's not the type of man that he truly is. And eventually, once he's got you attached, he's gonna stop doing all that shit and reveal how shitty of a person he is underneath all that fake shit. So try to get him to talk more than you, okay? Be infatuated with what he's saying. All right, love you guys.